word against yours. It's called a hustle, sweetheart.
Most people think Bellwether was a terrible twist villain and nothing more. I mean, we did as well. But that's not the whole story. Truth is, the movie had everything they needed to be on the same level as the greatest villains ever. They just failed to execute on it. So what went wrong? How did Bellwether almost become Disney's best twist villain? Before we talk about what Disney did well with Bellwether and how they could have made her perfect, we need to address how they messed it up in the first place, starting with the annoying contrast between her two personas. Like many Disney twist villains, she's presented with two conflicting personalities. She starts off timid, an administrative figure with no real significance, who can't even speak coherently. And though she is the second in command in the local government, she is given a packed cubicle for an office. She doesn't have an assistant and works as the assistant to the mayor.
Oh, no, but sir, you do have a meeting with Herds and Grazing. Sir, if I could just do... Oh.
Then, all of a sudden, after she is revealed as the villain, we see a totally different version. One that doesn't just have an assistant, but a bunch of vicious rams serving as her henchmen. Suddenly, her meek nature is dropped, and what we get is Thanos-level villainy. This gap between these two personas is so wide that her turn feels disconnected from the character we had come to know. There's little groundwork laid to make her transformation believable because the movie's attempt to foreshadow Bellwether's reveal was poorly done. The hints were either too weak or too buried in visual clutter to really stick. For instance, Bellwether is often pushed aside by her superior, Lionheart.
Bellwether, make room, will you? Come on.
This dynamic mirrors the broader theme of small prey animals being oppressed by larger predators. One could argue that the film uses this relationship to justify her eventual plan, but that justification is never expanded upon. Another notable Easter egg appears early in the movie during Judy's first encounter with Nick Wilde.
Hey, watch where you're going, Fox.
The ram who yells at Nick for jaywalking is later revealed to be Doug, Bellwether's henchman. He's one of the 3 rams running the Night Howler lab, together with Jesse and Woolter, referencing Breaking Bad. These are clever nods, but they don't meaningfully develop Bellwether's character in any reasonable way. Even Bellwether's design tries to tip us off. She dresses in darker clothing as the film progresses. She starts off wearing a navy jacket with a red blouse, and ends up in solid black on black. She's even accessorized with a gold necklace and brooch, hinting at her aspirations for power and status. These cues are smart, but ultimately too subtle. They don't function as proper narrative signals when they're competing with a fast-paced, detail-rich world like Zootopia. Most viewers miss them entirely, which makes her reveal feel abrupt rather than earned. Another missed opportunity lies in her species design. The movie already featured a black sheep during the childhood play scene, a small, timid character whose ticket is stolen by Gidgeon Gray.
Give me your tickets right now. I'm gonna kick your meek little sheep butt.
Ow!
If that sheep had turned out to be Bellwether, the movie could have provided a more solid backstory. Bellwether and Judy would have shared a moment of childhood trauma at the hands of a predator.
Are you okay, Judy?
Yeah, I'm okay.
That connection would have added weight to Bellwether's mistrust of predators and her eventual decision to exploit that fear for power. It would also have made her alliance with Judy more layered. 2 victims of bullying, walking opposite paths. Besides, that little sheep was a black one, meaning she could have been referred to as the Black Sheep, both literally and metaphorically, following her reveal. But it gets worse. Bellwether also doesn't get enough screen time to leave an impact. She appears in only 6 scenes before the reveal. Judy's graduation ceremony, the moment she puts Judy back on the case, when Lionheart slams the door in her face, when she helps Judy and Nick with surveillance footage, when she announces Judy's success in relocating the missing mammals during the press conference, and when she and Chief Bogo tried to make Judy the face of the ZPD. In all of these scenes, none developed her character beyond the role of a plot device. We don't know her background. We don't get an objective reason why she feels the way she does. Compare that to villains like Ernesto de la Cruz or King Candy, whose appearances were all over the place. If they weren't directly in front of the camera, they were being talked about by other characters.
His first steps toward becoming the most beloved singer in Mexican history.
Their villainy emerges logically from their desires and personalities. King Candy's villainy is rooted in the tragic pain of abandonment and not being racer number one no more. We see his brokenness and understand how it twisted him into a tyrannical dictator, while Ernesto de la Cruz's ambition is a direct result of his insecurity and jealousy, which are hinted at early. Both of these villains are friendly and charismatic on the surface, but their underlying motivations are explored in a way that makes their eventual reveals impactful and earned. Bellwether had that same potential, a friendly face hiding a deep, simmering resentment. Unfortunately, her motivation is boiled down to one throwaway line.
We're on the same team, Judy. Underestimated, underappreciated.
That's just not enough. Her motivations, as presented, are underdeveloped. She wants to incite a race war to gain power, using fear to turn the city against predators. But this comes out of nowhere. Her plan is extreme and calculated, but the character we're shown is passive and sidelined. Anyway, these were the major misses of Bellwether's character. As for the hits or the things that were gotten right, there are a lot of surprises. There are elements that were popularly deemed misses, but which are actually hits. While Bellwether's twist was mishandled in execution, her character does reflect several smart choices that align well with Zootopia's themes and plot structure. First, her motive fits within the broader framework of systemic inequality in the world of Zootopia. Despite prey animals making up 90% of the population, they are not necessarily in control of society's power structures. Bellwether is an example of a prey character who appears to have broken through that ceiling, serving as assistant mayor to a powerful predator, Mayor Lionheart. But her position is a figurehead. Lionheart calls her Smellweather and mocks her with a mug, which she pretends to appreciate. These small humiliations reflect a workplace culture where Bellwether is undervalued and ridiculed despite her title. This pattern extends to other characters. Judy Hopps is another prey animal striving to overcome bias. Despite graduating top of her class at the police academy, she is relegated to meter maid duty.
I don't want to be a meter maid. I want to be a real cop.
Chief Bogo, a Cape Buffalo, treats her with condescension and is quick to fine her when she doesn't meet expectations. Judy's discrimination parallels Bellwether's experiences, establishing a pattern of prey being dismissed or underestimated even when they're qualified. This is also where Bellwether's rise to power begins to make sense. Critics have questioned how someone so timid and seemingly meek could become assistant mayor, let alone assume the role of acting mayor. But her trajectory reflects something realistic: symbolic appointments. Bellwether says herself that she was chosen to be a figurehead.
Oh, I'm more of a glorified secretary.
As she said, the chief just wanted the votes of the sheep. This context justifies her resentment and her drive for control. But again, it was the lack of backstory and her limited screen time that messed everything up. Nevertheless, the film also weaves subtle cues into her identity, starting with her name. A bellwether is the sheep that leads a flock, typically marked with a bell, More broadly, the term refers to a person who indicates future trends, a fitting name for someone with political ambition. The filmmakers emphasize this visually. Bellwether wears a bell around her neck as an accessory. The name, costume, and symbolism point toward her hidden leadership potential. Additionally, the twist that she is the villain plays on the idea of appearances and assumptions. She is literally a wolf in sheep's clothing. The wolves in the film, whom the audience was led to believe might be suspicious because of their association with the predators going savage, were just guards. In truth, they are simply doing their jobs, and their only stereotypical behavior is uncontrollable howling. This subversion challenges viewers' expectations, making Bellwether's twist thematically appropriate even if the setup is weak. Nevertheless, another thing that might be done with the wolves was to make them Bellwether's henchmen who were manipulated or chemically brainwashed. They could have added a layer of irony and tension. Imagine Bellwether using predators to carry out an anti-predator campaign. There might even be a part where Bellwether would be seen talking to a wolf in hushed tones. Perhaps not directly, but her silhouette in the shadows. It would have been more clearer and direct foreshadowing. In any case, here's another misconception that needs clarity. Critics have argued that her plan undercuts the film's message. After all, by drugging predators and making them go savage, Bellwether appears to confirm the stereotype that predators are dangerous. But this is where her villainy becomes chillingly coherent. Her goal is not justice or balance, it's dominance. She's not trying to liberate prey from oppression. Instead, she intends to elevate them above predators by reinforcing and weaponizing those old fears. She exploits the historical narrative that predators are biologically dangerous and uses a synthetic drug to simulate proof of that danger. In doing so, she aims to remove predators from power permanently.
We'll be unstoppable.
This is the hallmark of ideological extremism, justifying unethical means with the promise of restoring order or balance. Bellwether's logic follows a pattern seen in real-world propaganda and demagoguery. Her plan is effective because it taps into deep-seated societal fears.
Go back to the forest, predator!
If predators are seen attacking civilians at random, the public will demand containment and removal, creating a power vacuum that prey, and she specifically, can fill. One of the more overlooked elements of Bellwether's arc is how she leverages Judy's public success. After Judy and Nick uncover the location of the missing predators, Bellwether encourages Judy's theory of predators reverting to their primitive state.
Was I okay? Oh, you did fine.
Then she tries to make her the face of the ZPD. This, in fact, is politically strategic. Bellwether uses Judy as a public symbol of competent prey leadership. She builds her narrative around Judy's image, a small rabbit solving big problems. This context adds a layer of sense to her decision to try to kill Judy later. In the museum scene, she insists on staging Judy's death as part of her larger narrative. She uses a dart gun loaded with night howler serum and attempts to hit Nick, fully expecting him to turn savage and attack Judy. When that happens, because Nick and Judy had swapped the serum with blueberries, her plan collapses. But the attempt reveals just how calculated she is. On the surface, the shift from ally to would-be murderer feels abrupt, but if viewed through a political lens, it's part of Bellwether's larger scheme. By allowing Judy to rise and then fall, especially at the hands of a predator, Bellwether creates a martyr.
Think of the headline. Cop killed by savage fox.
A trusted figure like Judy being killed by a savage predator would validate Bellwether's warnings and give emotional weight to her campaign. Nick, the fox, would serve as the perfect scapegoat. Once again, if only she had been foreshadowed properly and given enough relevant screen time, she would have been Disney's best villain. But what's crazy is that she almost was, especially when you look at the original idea of Zootopia and what it could have been. Zootopia was supposed to be a different film, a darker one that didn't just hint at systemic discrimination, but dragged it out into the open and forced the audience to stare it in the face. That version was built around a single idea: the tame collar. In this concept, predators were born with tame collars that would administer a painful electric shock whenever their emotions, particularly anger or excitement, spiked. Every predator in the city had to wear one.
They only felt safe if predators wore these things called tame collars.
It was strapped around your neck like a warning label, a muzzle, a leash. The collar changed color based on your emotions: green when calm, yellow when things started to spike, and red when they got too high. The shock didn't care whether you were angry or afraid, or happy or excited. If your heart rate rose, if your adrenaline kicked in, if you lost control for even a second, the collar punished you. The idea was brutal, but it worked. The world was inhumane, plain and simple. It exposed how prejudice often disguises itself as safety, how fear becomes policy, and how entire populations get criminalized not for what they do, but for what they are. There were no vague metaphors here. The oppression was visible, mechanical, and constant. And Nick Wilde wasn't just some sidekick, he was the main character.
Nick was the main character. He was the protagonist.
A hustler with sharp edges, trying to carve out a life in a city that treated him like a bomb waiting to go off. Then came a pivotal moment when his collar had to be taken off for a medical exam.
This is what a great feeling that is to have that collar taken off.
For the first time in his life, he felt freedom. Seconds later, the collar was snapped back on. You could see it in his face. Freedom wasn't real, not for him. He then joked that if the doctor got $1 every time someone begged to keep it off, they'd be the richest mammal in the city. That one moment planted the idea for Wild Times, Nick's underground sanctuary where predators could live like they used to, free, happy, and unshocked. It was part business, part rebellion, a desperate attempt to give joy back to animals who were never allowed to feel it. That was the Zootopia we almost got. Imagine Bellwether as a predator in this version, maybe a fox just like Nick. Her motivations are no longer just a single throwaway line about prey being pushed around. Instead, they are born from a lifetime of witnessing this systemic oppression. She would have seen her friends, family, or even loved ones shocked by these collars for simply expressing themselves. Her resentment wouldn't be a random sociopathic ambition. It would be a fire fueled by decades of pain and injustice. This is the kind of backstory that creates a villain in the same league as Killmonger from Black Panther or Magneto from the X-Men. We understand their trauma, we empathize with their pain, and we see the logical, however extreme conclusion they've drawn. They are products of their environment, and that makes them far more compelling. So why did Disney pull the plug on the tame collar version? When Disney showed early cuts to Pixar, the response was blunt, too miserable, and too dark. They believed audiences won't root for Judy if she's part of a system that shocks innocent people. They won't like Zootopia if it's this cruel, which is exactly the point. But instead of pushing forward, the collars were cut. Wild Times was erased, Nick was pushed into a side role, and the story was rewritten into something safer. They found the idea of a whole species living in fear and pain to be too heavy for a family-friendly film. And while we can understand the corporate perspective, it's a testament to the idea that great villains often require us to go to uncomfortable places. Ultimately, the decision to abandon the taming collars robbed Bellwether of the thematic weight and and personal history she needed to become truly great. She became a footnote in a mystery plot instead of the central figure in a tragic story about how oppression can turn a victim into a monster. The version that could have been would have created a complex villain whose actions, though unforgivable, were born from a place we could all, at some level, understand. It would have been a powerful, challenging, and unforgettable statement about the cyclical nature of prejudice. But it wasn't. But if you want to know how to actually foreshadow a twist villain, we have a video on that as well. Click here to watch it.